I mean, just getting texts from survivors who are just expressing disgust, really, at what they're witnessing from the government and from the minister, and just saying how pointless this entire exercise seems to them to be, given the unwillingness of the government to entertain any amendments. And that's pretty damning, isn't it? You know, that the people that should be at the centre of this are just disgusted at what the government are doing. Another person, the person I mentioned earlier on, who asked why on earth a whip was being imposed, a question that you still haven't answered, by the way. Why would you want to impose a whip? Why would you feel the need to impose a whip? Is just, you know, I said, is there anything else you feel needs to be said at this point, seeing as your point has been made? And he just said, you should invite the minister to do the right thing by resigning to make history in preventing a great wrong being done. Right? He's asking you, on their behalf, to make a statement that you're not willing to stand over this and be part of a government that would stand over what the survivors and victims do not want to happen. And that's pretty damning as well, isn't it? And that's it's unsolicited. These are people who contacted me who just can't believe what's happening. And you've been offered ways out, Minister. You know, you've been offered, Deputy Smith just offered, and others have offered you ways out by deleting the relevant section. I haven't got it in front of me, in terms of the imperative for the Commission to report at the end of this month, if that was deleted, that would create the space to look at this properly and to give people a chance to challenge the sealing of archives. So, yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't do that, take that out on foot of the feelings being expressed and the anger that's being expressed. And on the specific group of amendments, I heard your answer about TUSLA. So I thought about that and thought, is that a reasonable response? And don't get me wrong, I certainly don't want, and I'm sure survivors out there don't want to cast aspersions on the many very good people who work, no doubt, in the Child and Family Agency. But you see, it's about the nature of state institutions. That's the issue. And, if you like, the imperatives that state institutions have and the pressures on them to act in a particular way. They're silos, they're state silos who have their own imperatives. And it is those imperatives that are not trusted by the survivors. And that's perfectly understandable. It's why they don't see it as the right body. And I'll just give you an example of what I mean by that, because I just stumbled upon it in a very topical sort of context of how those imperatives can operate. A school principal emailed with a circular that was just sent out by the Department of Education to school principals in relation to COVID-19. And this circular said, if a teacher tests positive, the exact wording, I can't read it out here, but is that the HSE call shouldn't be the response you make, but you should ring the department, and the department will arrange for a public health call that will then decide on any measures in terms of close contacts and the possible exclusion of people. Now, I ask myself, why is the Department of Education interfering in a public health response in terms of the protection of children from a pandemic? Why is it doing that? Because it has its own imperatives. The Department of Education has an imperative at the moment to keep schools open. So it's interfering, it would appear, if this circular is correct, or may be interfering with what should be the proper public health protocols in terms of the close contacts of a positive COVID case. Do you get my point? And you see, that's the same potentially with a body like TUSLA, and we've seen instances and examples of it because it's got its own imperatives, which may conflict with the best interests of the people we're talking about in this bill, and their needs, and their wants, and their right to access information in relation to themselves, their own history, and their own identity. So that's why they don't want TUSLA to be doing it, as I see it, because they don't trust the imperatives of state bodies in particular instances, because they may conflict with the needs of people and their aspirations, their desires, their needs. And I think they're right. I think they've got a right to have that concern and to suggest that a body that is a bit further removed, if you like, from the imperatives of the state, or that might be influenced by political imperatives to cover up certain things, not to do things that might be damaging in some way to the state, they're right to be concerned in that regard. And that it would be better to have that information in the hands of a body that is less susceptible to the political or imperatives of a state body and its desire to protect itself or the state. So I think they are right. And I also, just to conclude, I just find it amazing that you are willing to allow a situation where records could be sealed for 30 years that have that records could be sealed that you're not sure what they are. Sorry, I slightly lost my train of thought. That you're not quite sure as the minister what could be in there, what information could be in there relevant to particular individuals, their histories, the actions of the state in terms of the abuse of mothers and children and individuals. I mean, I find that quite astonishing that you would allow and think it is acceptable that that would happen when you don't even know what it is or what is being sealed and what isn't being sealed. That seems to me just quite shocking that you think it's okay that would happen. Indeed, it even occurred to me, although it may not be the case, but I mean, I was born in a mother and baby home. And my adoption was organised through the St. Patrick's Guild, which is one of the institutions that's where there are records. And there are bits. I mean, I'm lucky. I didn't have a terrible history, but there are bits of my story that I don't know about. And I might be curious to try and fill in those gaps at some point. Is it possible that bits of my story, or bits of other important bits of lots of people's stories, could be sealed? And that I and others would never have access to the bits of my identity or my history, and the history and identity of thousands and thousands of other people. But far more the case when some of those histories are absolutely terrible histories, because as I said, I don't want to focus it too much on me. I was lucky. But when we're talking about terrible histories, you know, in the case of one of the people who's texting me at the moment, who were through all these institutions, not just one of them, but all of them, and still have not managed to secure the information about their real identity and their real history. And parts of that story, because maybe it's embarrassing to certain people, you know, and if you know some of the stories, and again, even I know bits of my own story, but and bits of other stories that I know, some of the circumstances surrounding the separation of children from their mothers, and some of the characters that were involved at the upper echelons of the state and the church are very, very embarrassing for the state and the church at that time. You know, there were powerful people utilized these institutions to protect themselves from some of their shameful and hypocritical behavior. Is that some of the information that may be sealed up, that we'll never get to see, but which actually could impact on the lives and histories of real individuals still existing who have the right to know their story, to know all the facts surrounding their history and their life? And that's okay that we could seal that and you wouldn't even know if it was sealed or not as the presiding minister. That's unbelievable, to be honest with you, Minister. It's unbelievable that you think it's okay that that would happen when you've been given an out, a few suggestions about outs not to do what you're proposing to do and to do the right thing by the victims that are out there asking you not to do it.